Well, there's a buzzword going around at the moment, or a buzz phrase going around called user-generated content when it comes to marketing, and it's not new. User-generated content, if we think about it, goes back to the old format of marketing that used to be around many, many years ago called word of mouth marketing. But in the world of social media, we've now got users that can create content with their phone. We've got users who can with reviews, and we've got testimonials that allows our user-generated content or our word of mouth marketing to be just a little bit more interactive and elements that we can include within our marketing. So today we're going to delve into that world and into that terminology, user-generated content, and how can you use it within your marketing. So user-generated content refers to any content that is created by the end user. So that could be a testimonial, it could be a social media post, it's the photo that someone's taken of their food at the restaurant and they're tagged people. It can be both positive and negative in production. There is also paid influencer campaigns, which is done by user-generated content. And that is a whole other strategy that you can get into where you start working with influencers and brands. User-generated content are things like written reviews, there's testimonial videos, they are write-ups that maybe someone does on their website. They are all content that isn't created by you for the marketing. It's someone else's words, it's someone else's message about why your product or service is good. Now, user-generated content is extremely powerful because it has that transfer of trust from the user to you. And that is why it is a sought after tactic to work with influencers for user-generated content. We're talking about someone who's got a wider audience, but they're our target audience, and we want to create user-generated content with them. Now, there is a way that you can create user-generated content with someone else who has your audience. That's about creating maybe podcast episodes or jumping in and having them as a guest on your site, or you might be a guest on their podcast, and that's a formula of you being able to create user-generated content without getting out there and having to, have the huge advertising budget to work with influencers. Some influencers will work with you on user-generated content on a gift basis so that you send them something, they'll write the review. The thing about user-generated content, it's a bit like PR. We have no control over what they're going to say about our product or service. So if you're unsure, if the gut says no, don't do it. Just walk away. It's not worth it. User-generated content quite often builds a community of people behind us. And, in some ways, our business community is very much user-generated content. It's people who get to know, like, and trust Clive and I. And they quite often are referring us throughout their areas and they're sharing videos and those sorts of things. So community building can be part of that user-generated content. You've most probably seen it out there. There's a product or a service that you love and they have a fan group and everyone tells everyone how to use it. If you're here in Australia, if you think about things like Kmart and Kmart Mums, they're really big groups, and there's IKEA hats and there's different communities out there that have a community that then builds user-generated content for them around that area. So there are different ways that you can tap into that. User-generated content quite often can also be used ads, and it tends to drive higher engagement. So for those of us who maybe don't have the large advertising budgets of the bigger enterprises, how do we use user-generated content with our marketing? We ask. So one of the first things we need to do is ask our customers for reviews and testimonials. So include it in our customer journey and in our customer plan to make sure that we are actually asking for reviews and testimonials along the way. We might want to feature our customers. So we might want to share someone doing something amazing, or they've got a book or something out there so we can feature our customers. We can also run competitions where we actually ask people to create some user-generated content for us so that they can, maybe do a video and we're going to give them a prize or something, or should we, tag us in this post with your XYZ and we'll do something. And that's another way that you can drag in user content. And then we, once again, ask for the reviews, ask for the testimonials, ask for the photos of people using it, because quite often they want to give it to you, they just didn't know how to get it to you in the first place. Now, in collecting our user-generated content, there's a number of ways we can do that. We can use a branded hashtag that anyone who uses that hashtag knows that we're going to follow it, we're going to be looking for it. We can have people who tag us so we know that they're tagging us from there. But we can also use surveys and feedback forms to be able to create those testimonials, those reviews, and in the end of it, have a tick box saying, would you mind if we use this as part of our user-generated content and marketing? We can include it in our customer workflow to ask for testimonials and reviews along the way. Then we maximize the impact of that user-generated content by sharing it out socially, by tagging, if we can, the person that's created it, if that's part of the engagement that we have with them, and continuing to share that message again. We include it in our newsletters, we include it in our socials, we might even include it on our website that XYZ said all of this about our product or service. And some creators that I've seen have gone that step further, and they have a user-generated content gallery on their website, which highlights everything coming from that hashtag on Instagram or on TikTok that is generated by that user. And it's a pretty cool way of showing off your user-generated content. User-generated content is all about building trust and authenticity. So you want to make sure that someone is using your product. They do love it before we start getting them to be able to create a post. We want to be able to make sure that we are working with our target market when we send our product or a service for user-generated content. And the best user-generated content you can actually get is the real-life people who are using your products and services because they bought them from you and because they're seeing impact and value. So that is where you might have someone that you run into in the street that's still using your product or service. You know, hey, can I take a photo of that? Or could I ask you to tell me what you love about it so that we can include it in our marketing? Then that might be the way to be able to do it from there. But the people who actually buy your product are the best users to help you create user-generated content. Now, there is one legal thing, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you full legal advice, but you do need to make sure, both legally and also ethically, that you've asked permission before you use someone else's content in your marketing. So that means that if someone said, I love this product, and you're asking them before you go and just steal their Instagram photo to be able to use it. And you go through that process. So now is your chance to go out and have a look at what user-generated content you're out there. So first of all, go and see where you've been tagged. See where someone has tagged you and see if it's a good post or it's a good review or testimonial, you can use it. Take those customer reviews and maybe start turning them into Instagram stories and reels that you can share out there to be able to engage with your audience. And ask your customers. Next time you're working with them, ask them for a review, ask them for some feedback. And if they're using your product or your service on site or somewhere like that, out in the wild, get them to send it to you, because that user-generated content is the most authentic way that you can show how people are using your product and service in marketing. Until next time, my name is Linda Reed-Enever. I'm an ideas and marketing strategist, and I help you create impact for your business.